Before we wrap it up on that, Kelvin Bell, uh, he doesn't, not that I'm listening to defensive line coach talk across the country on a regular basis, but he's not necessarily a guy that seems to be getting his due.
That's interesting. Maybe there's some truth to that. I mean, I know one thing that he's done that I really appreciate is the emphasis on depth. I remember toward the later years of Norm Parker, and even I think a couple of those early Phil coordinated years, that defensive line, the one knock against it was maybe a lack of depth. And I always point to this. I know people probably get tired of hearing it, but I just remember those games, late 2000s, early 2010s, where you had these, the Dan Purses and the Kafkas of Northwestern that would kind of wear you out and stress that defensive line. We don't really have that issue now because, one, it seems like not only do they have more depth, but they also have guys that are just have better motors. Like they just recruit with more of a view to, does a guy have a motor that we can work with? And, I mean, you talk about Jeremiah Pittman, big kid. He got a motor. If you watch him, the kid's got a motor. Herkett, Llewellyn, Joe Evans, they all got motors. The guys that I talked about in the 24 class, I mean, they're all physically gifted. They got motors, and so those two things, I think he's been a big part of that, and he has turned out some good pro prospects. One being Lucas Van Ness, who was not real highly recruited coming out of high school. I'm trying to think of who else has come under his leadership. I think he was there during the AJ Epinesa era, which I don't, he was obviously well thought of coming out of high school. But no, he's done a real good job with that class. I think the next step for him is, can you find like you said earlier, a well-defined pass rusher? And can you get that type of production? And I'm talking like, it's hard to do, but can you get Drew Ott 2015 like production, or Adrian Claiborne 2008 type production? Those are the ones that I think maybe they're still missing, and those are, again, hard to come by. I mean, Adrian Claiborne put together a pretty nice career in the league, and I'm sure Lucas Van Ness is on his way, but they've had good players. Davion Nixon is another one I didn't mention that came through the leadership of Kelvin Bell. So I don't know. Maybe they're another year away. Maybe Deontay Craig turns into that guy. I don't know that Herkett or Llewellyn or either one of those guys are poised to become some future phenom at the NFL level, but it's also been proven that Joe Evans and guys like that can be molded by Kelvin and by Phil and turn into really solid Big Ten defensive linemen.
You hit on the guy that I believe is my favorite Iowa defensive lineman of all time, and that's AJ Epinesa.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, where did he?
I like guys that bat passes in the air.
Well, Anthony, that was that 2017 line, for example, was a very good line. Remember, Anthony Nelson was on that roster.
Yeah.
He ended up heading over to the Bucs, and I don't know what his status is right now, but played a lot. And Matt Nelson was also on the defensive line, who's become a starting offensive tackle in the league. So very interesting 2017 defensive line. Who was I just thinking of? Was there someone else that we were about to bring up? I don't know. But yeah, they've had some unheralded, underrated guys. Parker Hesse, who's turned into a tight end.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's another name. We can keep going down the list.
Yeah. And bringing up those guys, and especially Drew Watt and Adrian Claiborne, reminds me, maybe we will allow you to get through the March Madness and the all the hysteria concerning college basketball. But what I would love to do sometime, maybe we do it on the regular show, but maybe we carve out an hour at some other point during downtime in May and June, an Iowa Mount Rushmore discussion.
For each position?
Iowa football, Mount Rushmore. No, just the Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
Just the four.
All time or in my lifetime?
We can start to divide it And if you want to go those various routes, if you want to divide by positions and so forth, but we should land on a final four.
Okay. I think the best way to do that, Mark, would be to devote a show to creating a Mount Rushmore for each position,
Okay.
and then you take one from each position, and then have one player from each position, and then the final
Great.
round would be who are the best overall players of all these different positions.
Folks, what do you think? We will do a Mount Rushmore and sometime in May or June, maybe after spring ball. I'm looking forward to that.